You're listening to the Nerd to Know Media Network. Join us at nerdtoknowmedia.com.
Broadcasting from the Blanchardstown Centre, this is Phoenix FM.
This is 92.5 Phoenix FM, community radio for Dublin 15.
Hey everybody, it's JB Jeremy Borash, and you are listening to Darragh O'Connor on the...
Welcome to the Wrestling Rewind, the only wrestling podcast by fans who don't hate wrestling.
Hello everybody, welcome to Phoenix 92.5 FM. This is the only wrestling podcast by wrestling fans who don't hate wrestling. My name is Darragh O'Connor. You are listening to the Wrestling Rewind, and we are back after a little bit of a break because I lost my voice, and how I lost my voice is actually the subject of today's show because I went over to Impact TNA to watch their return to the UK for the first time in I think about 8 years. They did a bunch of tapings over there. I was at the Glasgow show, so today we're going to be talking about that Glasgow show, and also going to be talking about Impact Turning Point 2023. But I'm not going to be doing it alone. I'm going to be doing it with, you know him, you love him, Mr. 1-0, Mr. Martin Harty. How are things, Martin?
Darragh, it's so good to speak to you. I know it's only been like 2 or 3 weeks, but
I literally lost my voice for 2 weeks.
You lost your voice. I lost my heart. But listen, it's all good. My cup is full, my heart overfloweth, and my bladder is empty. So I'm ready for the podcast. But before we get to as we get started, I'm going to step in here and I'm going to overtake just momentarily. It's only a momentary coup d'etat. I'm going to overtake hosting duties for a second.
Absolutely.
Because I don't want you in charge of this conversation. I want you to respond to this conversation. Because Darragh, for many years, has been something of the Mystic Meg of the Wrestling Rewind. He's been proclaiming for years that WWE was going to be sold, and it was sold. And now, one of his dreams, possibly a nightmare, but I think one of his dreams has come true. So Darragh, I'm going to give you a free-form platform here. TNA is coming back. Give us your thoughts.
Well, look, I just want to correct you slightly, right? So you are right. I did predict WWE was being sold, and it was. But you left out Sting for about 8 years, if not longer. I was like, Sting is coming to the WWE, and he did. So that was the first time I was right. Then I was right about that, and now TNA. Yeah, look,
I left that one out of respect for you because his WWE run was so terrible.
Fair, okay, that's fair. But no, I mean, look,
trying to be your buddy here.
Look, I'll be honest with you. When we were talking about Impact, I would just call it TNA, right? I have since learned that not only am I not alone in that, but that's just kind of the way it's been for most Impact fans, TNA fans. We never stopped calling it TNA. It's always been TNA. So, yeah, I think they made the right decision. I think it's a really cool, invigorating decision for the company. A lot of changes that they've made are masterstrokes, really. But there's just something so satisfying about being able to shout TNA again and it being encouraged by the company. And it just like gives people a rallying point, really, that Impact hasn't had for a long time. It kind of struggled there for a little bit, and now it's back in all its glory. Like, it's everything about the production, and we will get into this. Everything about the production, the actual wrestlers who are there, and the fans. I've never encountered outside of Impact Wrestling, TNA Wrestling, such passionate fans who genuinely love the product, and that is what I missed.
I have loads of notes on that. I can't wait to talk about that when we get into the shows. But here's the question I have for you.
Go on.
Like, my main exposure to TNA has been through you.
Yes.
And through this podcast. It's not that I didn't watch it. It's just that, I grew up in rural Ireland and you just didn't have much exposure to anything beyond like WWF Silver Coliseum VHS tapes. So is this a big deal, or is this just a change of initials?
I think cynically it could be seen as the latter, right? And I had to go over to the UK. I had to see for myself if that was the case. And again, look, thank you to TNA and to Simon and the whole crew for giving us tickets. Genuinely appreciate it. We're not going to hide that fact. TNA have always been really good to this podcast and previous podcasts and stuff as well. And it's great to have their support. But genuinely, I went over to see, okay, is that which is true? Which is it? Because I was curious. Genuinely, I was. No, it's very much a different thing. Not only the production style, but the vibe of the show. It was like being in a super indie metal concert almost, with that really good crowd. A couple of people said it was kind of like old ECW, even when I was there, and that's also true. It just gives this, because I think one of the biggest things that even we talked about ourselves, yourself, myself, and Dave in our group chat when it was announced, the six-sided ring, right? Because that was obviously what a lot of people thought TNA, associate TNA with.
Yeah.
And I do miss the six-sided ring. I get why it's not. The wrestlers don't like it. It is quite dangerous. But here's the thing. They've replaced that now with this vibe. These smaller venues with a red hot crowd. It looks completely different. The setup where they have like the limited Titantron, but like production in the right places, while emphasizing that the main product here really is the wrestling. And that's what they needed. They needed a heart. They needed to come back to what they were. And finally, look, we've been saying this for a while. You can go back and listen to shows where we have said, look, Impact Wrestling is the best solid hour and a bit of wrestling you can watch every week. And, it's been like that, but they needed that it factor. And it's in one hand it's surprising, but on the other hand it's really not, that to just go back to being what they were in 2023. It's a masterstroke. It really is.
I think it's like it's kind of the same thing I've said about AEW, is that people don't need another WWE. They need an alternative. Yeah. And the way you do that is by doing your own thing. Like, offer something different. And to be honest, TNA doesn't need the six-sided ring to offer something different, because I've been watching lots of TNA the past couple of months, and like, I'll flat out admit I'm not a TNA expert. I only really get into it through doing this podcast with Darragh. But like, you can even see when wrestlers are doing the matches that the six-sided ring, it definitely stands out, but it's awkward. You can't throw someone directly into the ropes. You have to do it at a kind of an angle, because there's no sort of flat side of the so I can see why wrestlers wouldn't like it, and obviously the octagon makes the ring stiffer and all that, but what I got from this show was, like, even without like the gimmick of a six-sided ring, this was different. This was something really different,
like completely different. I mean, like in this year, I've been to WWE. I went to a WWE house show. We're obviously at All In, which is the biggest wrestling event of all time. And then I went to Impact, and believe it or not, and people might say, oh, my favorite wrestling show I've been at in years was this. And it's like, don't get me wrong, All In was great. It was a good show. WWE house shows, they are what they are. You really know what you're getting with WWE house show. I've never experienced a show like this, or let me correct myself, I haven't experienced a show like this since the days of TNA, when Kurt Angle was going against AJ Styles in Dublin for an hour. They've remembered who they are, and I think that's the big takeaway. TNA, Impact Wrestling, they now remember why people love that product, why they support it, why they want it to succeed. Every single person in that arena where not only casual, there were no casual fans, there were none. They were red hot TNA fans, dyed in the wool.
Well, I'll tell
TNA
you what.
fans.
I'll tell you what I have.
And I got to talk to loads of them. It was great. So shout out to anybody who's listened to this podcast because of it, because it was great to actually talk to legitimate TNA fans. It was phenomenal because you don't really get that, or you haven't got that in a long time. Because obviously there was the WWE and the AEW tribalism, and I'm just sitting there like, I don't care. I like Impact. And just to be able to talk to other people who were in that same boat, it was very cool.
Well, there's two things I want to say there. So firstly, in terms of the crowd from these shows, right? Yes, it wasn't as big as other shows, so you didn't get that kind of rumbling pop, that that you feel it. But my God, when I was watching this show, I was looking at that crowd going, they are having the time of their lives. Like
I've never heard.
You're not getting a huge roar, but you're looking at every single person in that crowd is absolutely having the uber crack.
Look, I have never been in a crowd that were so engaged with everything. Everything. Like, I mean, we will get into it. I mean, like, even from stuff that wouldn't really, like, you talked a little bit beforehand that there were a couple of things in the show that, AEW fans would get crucified for or whatever. And that's probably fair. But the way this was all done, where the crowd is the show, I like the fact that there were very few seats. There were like maybe 20 seats or something. So it had to be like a gig where everybody was standing watching. And that actually was a very good idea. Like, yeah, again, like, I mean, I've seen Impact in arenas. I've seen Impact in smaller arenas, and I've seen them in venues like this. This is it. This is how you do it. Now, look, obviously we want them to make as much money as possible. We want them to grow, but this is something. Sorry, this is something that you can't get anywhere else. And I think that's what you were saying, where it is like a unique selling point, where you're actually not part of the show, because that's kind of silly, but you're involved to the extent where it's like, I mean, whoa.
Whenever
right
Grado comes out, you're definitely part of the show.
Absolutely. But like, it was just from the minute the first bell rang. Actually, you know what it is? They've figured out how to bring the Impact Zone on the road. That's what it is. That's what it is. Well, that's what they've done.
Well, that's a huge thing. Like,
that's what they've managed to do.
So, one of the things about this tour that they did that really made me think, and again, I'm not the Impact guy. One of the things about this tour that really made me think Impact is back is that they're out on the road. Yeah. They're not doing the tapings in the one place. Like, they're getting out and about. They're not even touring the US or Canada or whatever. They're going to different countries and that. It's like, this seems like a company that's on the up and up, that's, got a bit of resurgence. And even if it is just a name change, it doesn't feel like that, because it feels like, sorry to use the old WWE parlance of eras, but it feels like a new era.
Yeah, no, and the thing about it is, it's like, I think when Impact Wrestling became Impact Wrestling, it lost something, and we can go into it. We can talk about it, but it definitely did lose something. And I even when it was at its darkest point, it wasn't exactly, it wasn't TNA, and I think that's what everybody wanted. And as it got further on, there was still that nostalgia for it. And even when it got better, people were like, okay, Impact Wrestling is going somewhere. But I think it's a very interesting statement to go, we now remember why you're here. We now remember why you stuck with us. And that's actually something that Scott D'Amore came out and said. I don't think it wasn't on the TV show, but he did come out and say it, which is great.
Well, Will Ospreay said pretty much the same thing.
Same thing, yeah. And, it was, but it's not only like they're saying it on the show, they're genuinely like, no, we know what we're doing here. And that was something that it was refreshing to hear, because it's like, it's not scripted. It's literally like, no, this is what we're doing. And I've never seen a wrestling company do that before, ever.
From an outsider's point of view, or like from the point of view of someone who's like broadly new to TNA, it's mad that even I got the vibe. Like, so I haven't been through the history that you have. I haven't gotten the TNA, SD that you that you have. And even I get the vibe watching this is that this is a company that's on the rebound, that's gotten its second win, that's coming back. I think the other thing I got from it while I was watching it was, like you talked earlier about the tribalism within wrestling. God, oh, I'm so sick of that. But man, watching this really made me realize just how important it is to have alternatives. Because even I, like when AEW came along, I was like, okay, this is everything I've ever wanted. This is the alternative. And even I had broken wrestling down into WWE, AEW, and New Japan, and that's it. You know? And even I'd forgotten about the hundreds of other. And for God's sake, I used to work for an Irish independent company.
But there is only so many hours in the day, and there is only so much bandwidth that people have, you know. And I think
there is, but it's how you use that bandwidth. And for anyone out there who feels kind of burned out by wrestling, or who feels that it's all, you know, it's all the same or whatever, I mean, this is worth a watch. You know.
Well, look, as I said, I lost my voice because from the moment the show started to the moment the show finished.
And I should just say that he's in a metal band.
Yeah.
And he lost his voice at a wrestling show.
Every single person was chanting TNA for 2 hours, almost unbroken. So I've never experienced that before, where it's this passionate love for something that is back. And that's what it feels like. And I know we've gone on and on about it, but I mean, for me, I never thought this would happen. It was almost like a reflex where we talk about Impact and I'd be like, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so the TNA show was great. And they're like, Impact Wrestling. I'm like, still TNA though, you know? You're just like,
but here's the question there. Look, obviously, like, we're going to get into the review, but obviously we're both quite happy with the vibe of this show. Yeah, and we're both quite upbeat about, you know, the future of this company, and everyone's pretty cool. Yeah, but so you're telling me that all these people were chanting TNA. So here's what I want to know. Were they chanting Total Nonstop Action? Were they chanting Tuesday Night Action? Or were they chanting Boobies and Bums?
You missed one. Test and Albert.
Ah!
I was like, you're going to miss one. And you did. You missed one. You let yourself down.
My SMARC category has been removed.
Yeah, you let yourself down. Yourself down.
Down. Let me family down.
But yeah, so the first
I
TNA...
let the wrestling rewind down.
So the first TNA show is Hard to Kill in January, so we will be watching that one. But I have to say, right, I was put on to the merch. Oh, by the way, the merch prices were actually like ridiculously cheap as well. If you're looking for like wrestling merch that is very reasonable, TNA shows, absolutely.
Hold on. Are you telling me that a wrestling t-shirt exists for less than 40 quid?
Yeah, try 15. Try 15. But I was put on to Impact Euro Store. You can get a random t-shirt for £2. All DVDs are 15, right? And you also get like signed promotional photos and goodie bags with everything.
And here, I'll tell you this.
I mean, I didn't know this. I didn't know this was a thing until I was talking to the other, like, either TNA fans or other journalists that were there. And I'm like, wait, what? What?
I'll tell you this, and I'm not one of those preppers or anything like that. I don't have like a dungeon or a tomb under the house or anything. But people invest in DVDs, because see all this subscription and cloud stuff, that's going to collapse and you're going to lose all your bloody wrestling. And in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king, and I'm going to be king because I still have my 2000 Royal Rumble DVD.
Well, look, all I'm saying is new TNA merch is very cool. I have my old TNA shirts, which I'm glad I get to wear again. But I did buy an Impact shirt just, to have. But yeah, the new Impact Wrestling shirts are actually badass. So our TNA shirts are actually badass. So I would genuinely recommend, if you are a fan of TNA or Impact Wrestling, the deals there are very good. And I'm not saying that because we're, whatever. Like, genuinely, this was news to me, so I had to pass that on. Because, like, I mean, when I showed up and I was looking at the shirts, and yeah, compared to WWE where the shirts are 45, Blink 182 where the shirts were the shirts are 50, All In where the shirts were also 35. I was just like, wow, okay, £15 for a shirt, and I can get a pint. Amazing. So,
like, what is it about like alternative outside? Like, not even just in wrestling, like the Blink 182 thing, that's annoyed me. Like, their whole thing is that they're like perpetual teenage punks, and they're charging 50 quid for a t-shirt.
Yeah.
It's like, who is it? Bruce Springsteen's coming to Belfast next year. You know what all his working class songs? He's charging £170 for a ticket.
Here's the thing.
Sort it out, boss.
Look, as I said,
we know you're listening.
TNA have always kind of been fans focused first, which is something that, again, a lot of people probably don't know. But any interaction that I've had, with the wrestlers, with the company, have always been fan first. Even when they made a couple of missteps, it was still because they thought they were doing the right thing. This time, it's throughout the whole company. Like, even with the merch stand, like, you can buy the merch. It's all there. Apparently at the US shows, it's even better. So I'm kind of envious of everyone at Bound for Glory because, one, they got to see Bound for Glory, but two, the merch apparently was great. So look, that's all I'm going to say on that. It was a revelation for me. It was a revelation.
One of the issues, like, so AEW has been having attendance issues lately, and apparently one of the issues is that they got super hot, like last year, the year before.
Yeah.
And they went round all these arenas and like sold them out, and like it was amazing. And then they come back this year and they just jacked up the prices, like mad jacked up the prices. And that's been like a major contributor to why like they've been having trouble getting people in arenas, because people were like, oh, I got these awesome seats last year for $40, and now the same seats are $120. Like,
you have to kind of stick with your base, and we can kind of draw some comparisons maybe to lessons that wrestling companies can learn from Impact or from TNA with this whole move. Like, it is very much I don't want to call it like a game changer, but it does kind of put them very much back on the board where they do exist in the wrestling in the wrestling mainstream. But well,
they're back in the conversation.
Exactly. Exactly.
If nothing else, like, I don't like to use these groups as a sort of a litmus test or anything, but like the likes of What Culture and Cultaholic, they're back reviewing like Impact shows. I know there were shows that were in England and in Scotland and that, but they're back reviewing them. Like, it's and look, it's something that, again, I kind of didn't think this would happen. I didn't really know what would happen. I knew Impact was getting better every time I watched it. The shows were always enjoyable. The pay-per-views are always great, but this seems to be what they needed. So, based on that Great Bound for Glory show, they rolled into these shows, right? So I didn't obviously go to all of them. We are going to talk about the Glasgow show now, and then we'll go into Turning Point. Yes.
But that's kind of the vibe that everybody was having. They were still on a high from Bound for Glory. They were still on a high from TNA. And now it's just like, that's what we went into. So that's kind of why we talked about it, because it is just one of those shows where it was red hot from bell to bell. And speaking of which, man, the show started off with Joe Henry, right? Now what happened to me, right? The same thing happened when Ella and I, when I went to the house show. I wasn't a fan of Ella and I when I went in. As I was leaving, huge Ella and I fan, right? The exact same thing happened with Joe Henrik, where I was like, it's the music and the character. But
here's the thing for me.
So infectious.
Here's the thing for me. Like, I get that the LA Knight character is like catchy like everybody just loves doing that.
Yeah,
but
they do.
I don't know. It just for me, it feels like Seth Rollins's music. Like it was designed by a committee to be catchy, and it doesn't feel genuine. It doesn't feel. So I kind of resent it.
No, apparently, apparently he was doing it when he was even in Impact. It was just the thing he always did.
Like I say, I don't have the Impact background you have, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that's maybe I'm just cynical about.
A little bit. No, apparently he was doing it for years. Yeah, and it just caught on recently. But my God.
Well, maybe I'm just cynical about anything that happens in WWE. I just, like I automatically says, you set that up. But that feeling I absolutely did not get, right? Whenever Joe Hendry's music started and he turned around and smiled down the camera like he was in an infomercial.
Oh, it's amazing.
I was like, I believe in Joe. Oh my God. I was like, I'm in. It's been 3 seconds and I am in.
No, that's it. And immediately I'm like, I'm this guy's literally biggest fan. Like immediately. And I'm in a room surrounded by Scotsmen. And I'm just losing my mind for this guy who I was indifferent. Because I mean, like, I love Frankie Kazarian. And I was like, move over, Frankie. But like Kazarian is obviously amazing. Like he's class, it always has been. But it's like, whoa, they've like made this megastar just, with such simple things. Like it's such an easy character. Very easy to mess up, but the crowd are just into it. They're clapping the whole time, and then they get in the ring and you have an absolute barn burner. The match was phenomenal, like genuinely. So
I mean, like Joe Hendry and Frankie Kazarian, it was never going to be a bad match. Like,
and you know what's wild though? This was both lads had another match beforehand, so this wasn't even their first match.
Well, that's so here's where we kind of need you to come in because you're our man on the ground. This episode of Impact viewed from TV was 4 matches, I think, but it was basically taking the best from like 2 or 3 shows that they did in Scotland.
No, the bell time was like 6, I think. Bell time was 7 and doors opened at half 5. So basically the show went on for like near 3.5 hours and they had taped a couple of other things that were there. Mainly what was cut out of here was the rest of the Glasgow Cup. So the finals were what was shown on television, which I mean, I did kind of suspect that, but mainly what you got was like what was recorded,
Would it be fair to say that the Glasgow Cup is now more prestigious than the WWE World Title?
Well, Joe Hendrick has that, and he doesn't have the WWE title, so I mean, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, if you melted the WWE World Title, it's mainly steel and leather. So if you melted that, you could pour it into the Glasgow Cup. But if you melted the Glasgow Cup, you couldn't fit it into the World Title.
No, you could not. But anyway, so Scott D'Amore came out and then now
breeze on by that.
I do not have to respond. So Scott D'Amore came out and awarded Joe Hendrick the Glasgow Cup. The match itself was very good. I think at the time, again, I really wanted Kazarian to win, but because I'd been won over so much by Joe Hendrick because he was the first guy out and he worked a lot that night. Like, I mean, I think backstage or, with the organizing, he was a lot more involved in this than I think people know. So credit to him, like genuinely to get this all kind of sorted out. So, and you could kind of tell that he was, involved.
Well, even I could, when he came out, no, I actually really enjoyed this match. Like, excellent. Joe Hendry's brilliant. Frankie Kazarian's brilliant.
Oh, unbelievable.
This was a very good match. But even I could tell that, come on, Joe Hendry's from Scotland. This is for the Glasgow Cup. It's a home crowd. Like, there's only one way this is going.
Well, see, you're conditioned by WWE normally to be like, well, he's not winning because they don't put over people in the hometown. But
I've been deconditioned by AEW, who actually do put people over in their hometown. Maybe I was just mad. I was just like a robot going, does not.
But here's the thing: having him, like, Frankie Kazarian wasn't booed. Like, he wasn't a heel. Everybody loves Frankie Kazarian because it's Frankie Kazarian.
Here's the thing. Here's one thing WWE need to learn. People can lose. You put two people in a competition, one of them's going to win, one of them's going to lose. The loser doesn't automatically fall off the face of the earth or cease to be like an exceptional talent. It's just one person has to win and one person has to lose. Like, that's like one thing that I've always loved about AEW is that they've been kind of fearless, mostly when it comes to like definitive wins and losses. It's something New Japan does it even better. New Japan will just bang, do like real definitive wins and losses. But losing doesn't mean, like, I don't know anything about soccer, but like Manchester United doesn't lose a match and then suddenly everybody goes, oh my God, Manchester United is dead. Like, they're never coming. It's like, no,
they're buried.
Oh, they buried Manchester United on ITV. I don't even know.
I don't know anything about football. This is as far as we can go, folks. We know nothing about football.
Apologise to all our soccer fans. We have no idea what we're talking about. But the point is,
we only know about martial arts and fake sport. That's it. That's about it. That's where it ends.
Yeah, well, there you go. Actually, that's probably a better example. Say you have the top two jiu-jitsu experts in the world, and they fight each other. One of them wins and one of them loses. Nobody goes to the loser. All right, well, you're now crap. You're no longer the second best in the world. Yeah. You've been buried. Like, people can lose, and it's perfectly fine.
And the thing about it is, that's kind of the vibe throughout the whole night. Like, you know, I think the right people went over, with the exception of one. I'll get to that. But so you asked, you know, the man on the ground kind of thing. So when the in-ring segments were all shot, but the backstage weren't. I don't know where they were probably done, you know, obviously backstage or at a later time. But we didn't see any of those.
This is why we pay you to be our man on the ground, to tell us that the backstage segments were shot backstage.
Well, I don't know where they were, because we didn't see them. Because usually when you go to a WWE taping, right, they will show you the segments backstage. Or when you go to AEW, they'll show you the segments backstage. And even Impact used to show the segments backstage. So in the Impact Zone, you'd see everything that was going on. So this was a little bit different. So when I was watching the show, I was like, okay, that makes sense. They're going to have to pad around it or fill it, because they were kind of building towards Turning Point. The Turning Point was literally the next day. So, you know, but the next match.
Well, just before we move on to the next match, I'll be very brief. Because we were talking about the production and different things, there's one thing I want to say. I really, do you know, I don't even know if I liked it, but I really appreciated the difference in production in terms of the cameras that were ringside.
Yes,
they gave kind of it was almost a kind of guerrilla journalism, almost like a kind of a war journalism, that they were following the action as best they could, but it wasn't now, and I say this, it wasn't the WWE shaky cam stuff where
because you know what it was. It was literally two lads with one of the cameras that we would shoot our live show with.
But that's what it came across as. It came across as really good, experienced cameramen trying to keep up with the action, like trying to keep up with like insane action. And like I don't know how I'd feel about that if I'm watching it every week or and maybe I only have like you have the old TNA SD, I have the WWE camera SD. Like one of the main things that put me off, like that drove me away from WWE, was just the ridiculous camera angles they were using. This definitely wasn't that. Like, this felt more like almost like guerrilla journalism, like war journalism. Like there were these two guys who happened to be there and they were trying to keep up with the action. I think it was pretty cool. Like, I don't know how I'd feel about it every week, but for the shows I watched, and like, bear in mind, I sat down and I watched Impact and then Turning Point. So I sat and watched a good 5 hours of this, and I really enjoyed it. I think it was like we were saying earlier about style of wrestling and the fan interaction and all that. It sets TNA apart.
And that's what it needed. And I really appreciate not only the live vibe of it, because obviously it's very different, but it's the closest approximation really of what wrestling is like live versus on TV. Impact now have this because of the combination of, as I love that guerrilla wrestling or guerrilla journalism type description, because that's exactly what it felt like, where you're able to capture what it feels like to be there on TV. And they're the only ones who actually were able to do that. I mean, like one of the things that really bugged me about All In was it felt too like WWE, because WWE has sterilized themselves away from that. But
I completely agree with you. Do you know what it actually reminded me of? I have a Best of Cactus Jack DVD. And it has his really early stuff. And he used to do this thing where, do you know the back, like, pre-WWF, he used to do this thing where he'd run off the ring and jump outside and drop an elbow. Yeah. And whenever he'd hit the elbow, the cameraman would do it from a real low angle, and whenever he hit the elbow, the cameraman would shake. Yeah. I didn't feel gimmicky. It felt like the cameraman was watching the action, and this huge guy hit the ground and everything shook, which is silly, but like, that's not. No, but think about it. The cameraman is supposed, like, I think there is two schools of thought here. There's like filming the action, or as it is, and you're not doing anything else. And then there's being creative. It's kind of like when you watch movies or any of that, when you have someone actually with a vision. And this is what I was saying earlier on. TNA Impact has a vision for what it wants to be, and this is it. The super indie is, I don't think that's fair, but more like this grungy, no frills approach. That's probably a better way, where it's this proper grungy modern ECW kind of thing. And that's putting it too simplistic, but it is what it is. No, look, I keep laboring on the fact that I am an outsider. I don't have the Impact background you do. And look, I don't know how to feel about watching this style every week. And again, that's not because it's bad. That's, like you say, maybe just because I've been conditioned by WWE to sort of dread the shaky cam. Like, because of WWE, I can't even watch Cloverfield anymore. But man, I sat here and for 5 hours and I watched Impact, and yeah, I think I enjoyed it, but more than anything, I appreciated that it was different. Like, if I was sitting flicking through the telly, you wouldn't mistake that for WWE. You'd be like, this is a wrestling company with its own style, and that is, to me, that's the main thing.
And it was backed up by the in-ring product. I mean, I think they picked the best match. I think they picked the best matches of the night, really, and all of them were quite good. There's only like two that were cut, and I don't think they were cut because they were bad. I just think they didn't really tell the same story. Like, the next match was a very interesting intergender tag team match, which I haven't actually seen in a while. And the pairings were quite interesting. Moose, it's funny, right? Because Moose represents everything that style of wrestling should hate. Super over. Like, crazy over. Like, when Moose walks out, he's a superstar, but he's basically Goldberg, wrestles like Goldberg, looks like Goldberg, behaves like Goldberg.
Here's one thing you can say about TNA. Over the course of this show, like, I'm not even talking about Turning Point, just over the course of this episode of Impact, there was 5 or 10 people who came out who were massively just huge over.
Absolutely, like crazy over.
Moose was one, and I can see why. Moose is amazing.
Like, he is.
Even I know Moose, and he's incredible.
But this is what I'm saying. It's like it's such a unique vibe that, like, yeah, what you'd expect from this kind of stuff. Then Moose walks out and flips the script completely, So look, Subculture were quite cool. It was my first time actually getting to see them live. Obviously they have a long way to go. they are. I think they are like English, aren't they? They're like English locals. So
Yes.
I think they're going to like build them up as they're going through. So
I think
yeah.
we're the okay. So maybe I'm wrong here because I don't particularly watch, like I say, a lot of WWE. The two fellas, were they previously in NXT?
Yeah, they were. Yeah,
Right. They were grand. Your woman, Danny
Luna.
Luna.
Yeah.
Huge, just massive potential there.
You took the words out of my mouth. Yeah, I was going to say she's the star. Yeah.
She has a match on. I was so glad when I put on Turning Point to see that she has a singles match. So I was watching this going, of all the ones in there, and I mean obviously the likes of Moose and that are stars, they're great, but of all the ones in there, Danny Luna is the one to watch out for, and she has a singles match on Turning Point, and we'll get to that, but she totally justifies my interest in her. I get massive Chris Statlander vibes off her.
Well, here's the thing, man. This is not surprise. Like, one of the things that happened, and I think I said it to the people I was with. I was like, I shouldn't be shocked that one of the best things about this show is the women, because that is another thing they've gone back to. They're like, oh, what do people love about TNA? The women's division is always red hot. The X division is, a much.
Well, they did for years.
For
years when WWE had women like models in bikinis slapping each other. TNA had the Knockouts division, and they were actually.
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but that's like exactly what was happening. Yeah.
Yeah, but they didn't have divas. They had women, and they didn't have like, I don't know, like bra and panties matches.
Yeah.
They had wrestling, and they were like, they really. But thank God Stephanie McMahon came along and invented women's wrestling.
But no, I mean, just speaking about this, obviously, Subculture didn't win, but they put on a hell of a performance, and this, I don't want to say it was a star-making performance of Danny Luna, but when I was walking away from this, I'm like, I had the exact same thing with Turning Point. I'm like, I want to see her wrestle more, and we got to see that the next night. I really liked Deanna Purrazzo's gimmick. I thought it was wonderful, where she's pretty much Charlotte Flair, but with complete awareness.
Yes,
like, this is amazing.
It's so subtle.
It's so subtle, yeah. But it's like that's what she's doing. Yeah.
Immediately.
Yeah.
This is one of the great things about and I'm not calling TNA or Impact indie wrestling, but this is one of the great things about indie wrestling, that it gives you the freedom to do these gimmicks that are a wee bit more experimental, but also a wee bit more subtle. I just like, there was a lot on this show that was not the wrestling that I really enjoyed.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I know what you're saying. Like, it's not just it's the freedom, it's creativity. I think is what you're hitting on.
Like,
where
if that was her gimmick in WWE, you'd be beat over the head with it.
Yeah.
Like, you'd have the announcer saying that this is, and then you'd have video packages, and then you'd have her in the middle of her matches loudly monologuing, going, "I'm the new Charlotte." But no, with this, it was all shown in the ring, and I really appreciated it.
It was wonderful. Speaking of which, I then went to the bathroom, and as I went to the bathroom, I hear like a prayer. And I know what's happening, and I run back out because it's Grado. And Grado's been on, he was on the international desk, so he hasn't been on the Rewind. Hopefully be able to get him on in future.
Are you telling us that Grado owes you a new pair of jeans?
Well, no, luckily I finished I finished using the bathroom beforehand, but I did have to run back.
Darragh, I don't believe you.
But I have to say, I did not want to miss Grado coming out, because when you see him come out, particularly in a UK crowd, it's an experience. Now, I missed it all in because I was passed out in a taxi because I didn't sleep the night before. I was still recovering from a flight back from Orlando.
I didn't sleep the night before either, but I still made it.
I didn't. I was devastated. But apparently they didn't use Like a Prayer.
No.
So that's a huge missed opportunity, because I don't want to say it's entirely his gimmick, because it's not, but
Well,
it hooks the crowd unlike anything else. And it is the Grado experience. Without that, you don't get the full impact. Pun intended.
well, I mean, I assume there are licensing issues. If, like, maybe did TNA just go ahead and use the song? Like, without
I don't know. I mean,
texting Madonna?
I don't know. Look, all I'm saying is,
I assume if AEW, who paid £1 trillion for Final Countdown for Bryan Danielson once, I assume they would have given 50 quid for Like a Prayer. But if they didn't, I assume there was a reason.
all I know is when he came out, the place became unglued.
Was it definitely Like a Prayer, or was it like a WCW version where they changed 2 notes? So
It didn't matter what it was, because the minute the song started, the minute the song started, the crowd just sung it. So they could have played anything, and I think that's what's kind of missed from that understanding of AEW, where it's like he doesn't need to be exactly it, because the crowd is going to take it and run with it.
Well,
and
here's what I want to know, because before I give my take, I want to hear your take, because I'll be honest with you, I was very conflicted over this Grado match. So I want to hear your take before I give my take.
Right, go on.
No, I said I want to hear your take before I give my take.
Sorry. Sorry. Look, a Grado match is a Grado match, right? It's brilliant when it gets like, the entrance is obviously great. Afterward, it's a whole big party thing.
Yeah.
He's a great performer. He's a great wrestler in character. When he gets in the ring, you know what it's kind of going to be. It's going to be a series of moves. It's going to be I don't want to say this in a bad way, but he's the most WWE wrestler in moveset, in performance, right? So I never expect an in-ring classic from Grado, right? That's not why everyone watches Grado.
No,
they like him because he's genuinely entertaining. He's hilarious. He's a white meat babyface in, again, I hate to say it, but like, he's a white meat WWE babyface from the 90s in modern time indie wrestling. That's what he is. So, he uses his moderately limited skill set to the greatest advantage, and that's why he's made such a name for himself. It really is very interesting. But then again, he then breaks out. He was in there with somebody doing moonsaults, right? And he breaks out a Death Valley Driver, which is like, oh my god, that's unbelievable. So like, his match is like punch kick, random spot. But throwing him in there with someone with the more technical skills or high flying, like Trey Miguel, that really worked, because he was able to work a decent Grado match and then throw in a really interesting finish. And I think the last couple of seconds of this match was really, really cool. So,
yeah. So
not the best match of all time. Genuinely, not going to say that. Not even close. But for a Grado match, it was great.
You don't even have to say that, because not every match has to be the best match of all time. Like I wasn't negative about this match. Like, here's the feeling I got when I watched this match. Sitting on my couch, got this match up on my telly, and I'm watching it, and I'm looking at it going, I bet you that is great fun live.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
I bet you if you're there in the crowd, that's deadly. Like, if I was there with, a couple of hundred other TNA heads, just be roaring Grado, and you'd be giving her welly. But on TV, it you can see it, but you don't feel it. So I was like, I could kind of appreciate how this match was for the live crowd, but watching it, I started to get kind of bored.
And that's what I'm saying to you. He is a WWE performer.
Yeah.
And he bet like the match is a WWE match.
But here,
you know,
I actually had the complete opposite note. I was like, Grado's brilliant. He will have a long, like, illustrious, financially healthy career as an indie wrestler.
Yeah.
Like, he can
Absolutely,
go
yeah.
through every indie, and whatever town he goes to, they'll go mad for him. But unlike, say, Orange Cassidy, who took his indie gimmick and made it work on a international stage, I don't think the Grado gimmick translates to a big stage. I think it needs the local vibe, the indie vibe, the we're all in on the joke
Exactly.
kind of thing.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
know?
And that's what I was kind of saying. That's you actually
Yeah.
put it better than I could.
But that's not to say it was bad. Like I said,
No, it's a funny contrast actually because
Yeah.
we talked about in the last match something we really like was Donna Pizarro playing up the subtle I'm a WWE diva, right? I'm a Charlotte Flair kind of
Yeah.
character, and that works because her ring work and everything about the way she presents herself is there. Grado's character he's a WWE character from 1999, right? Who just so happens to be a local independent wrestler. And that's how I see him. I see him as a WWE guy from the 90s playing an indie wrestler, and everyone's in on the joke. And that's kind of the appeal of Grado.
Yeah.
But also, we're Irish, right? This is something that appeals to a UK audience, I want to say. Irish people can appreciate it because of how much UK culture we get. But at the same time, you are right. I think in Ireland, a couple of points in, you'd be, this is grand, But it really gets over in the UK because it's very rooted in UK sensibility.
Do you know, I think if I'd managed to stick with it, I think I could have been the Irish Grado.
I think you could have. But it would have to be different. It works because Grado appeals to a very English sensibility and sense of humor. It's not an Irish thing, Which and I mean that's probably why as you said it wouldn't work internationally or on television because you have to kind of be there. You have to be in on the joke. I think that's a really good way of putting it, man.
What would I have to do differently if I was grade Krakow?
So hold on, if you were in just say you were doing this in OVW, not OVW, in what's that thing called? OTT. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
If you're doing OTT,
well, the first thing I do is team up with Session Mob.
No. Have you seen the ads for Hunky Dories where your man is in and he screams at them and they pop?
Bang.
That's what you do.
So
that's the gimmick. That's the gimmick.
OTT.
No, genuinely, that's the gimmick because that's the most Irish Dublin sense of humor ever.
I'm already ordering the gear on Amazon, and this is our promise to you, to all the listeners in TNA, to all our listeners on Phoenix FM in Dublin, to the 1,000 people who randomly listen to us in Ohio. I don't know why you do, but we love you.
We do.
I will be OTT champion by April. Guaranteed.
With that gimmick, man, yeah, maybe.
Get all your subscription money back.
I mean, maybe, yeah. But listen, speaking of which, right? One of my favorite women wrestlers showed up, right? And I'm not being this in a bad way, right? I was kind of surprised by this because, as I said, the first time I saw her was on Bound for Glory, because I was kind of like actually paying attention to who was wrestling, right? And she comes out, and I'm like, she looks very familiar. It's Naomi. I love Naomi.
Do you know, I actually, I thought she was great. And then I was looking at the shiny, like the sparkly shoes.
This is it. Yeah, and I'm like, this looks very familiar.
Like, that looks like your one from WWE used to do that.
That Darragh loves.
and then I Googled Trinity, and you know when you put Trinity into Google, you get 10
Trinity
million
College.
responses. But eventually I found out, yes, it's Naomi.
It is. And I have to say, right, she is actually fantastic. Like, she's always been great. I've always thought she was very underutilized. She was kind of finding her feet in WWE. But they've kind of let her breathe a little bit. And this match, it was a non-title match, so it wasn't for the belt. Trinity would win. But my God, I had a great time watching this match because I was just like, this is who Naomi was actually always kind of supposed to be. But I just think she wasn't fully there. She's obviously developed a lot in the ring. You know, I can't believe it took me so long to realize who it was because I was like, she's so familiar. And then the dancing should have like let it in, but I think it was like a mixture of the dancing and the shiny shoes. And I was like, oh yeah, that's Naomi.
Well, here's the thing I really liked about this match is once I clocked it was Naomi, Trinity, who she is now. Well, once I clocked who she was, I was like, oh, that's awesome. I'm so delighted because the last I heard from her, she make like a random appearance in a Royal Rumble or something. I don't really remember, but I said, oh my God, because she made a kind of a sort of principal stance with Mercedes Moné, didn't she?
Yeah, she did, but
walked out. Obviously,
she walked out as the women's tag team champions as well.
As the champions, yeah, and obviously Mercedes Moné had been doing big in New Japan and all that. And I was like, oh my God, it's so good to see Trinity again. And I was looking at this match going, man, she is a star. Like, she is totally, like, my big concern was she is going to outshine Emerson Jane. And here was the big surprise. She didn't.
No.
They had, that's not to say she wasn't great. That's to say Emerson Jane was great. They had a really good back and forth. Look, Naomi never looked like she was in any danger of losing, but like this Wednesday on Dynamite, you had MJF versus Daniel Garcia, and the two of them had a brilliant match. At no stage did anyone think MJF was going to lose, but it was still a really good match, and I got the exact same vibes from this. I expected Trinity to be like a class above Emerson Jane, and she wasn't. This was a really good match.
And, you know, again, it goes back to the fact that in WWE, Trinity probably wasn't allowed the space to kind of find what works and what doesn't. With this, it wasn't a super fast-paced match. It was a well-paced match. And the crowd were into it from the beginning. Obviously, Emerson Jane, she's from the UK, so she was a hometown girl. Like, but the crowd were still, you know, supporting both of them because it was, you know, it did hook you from bell to bell. But I agree with you, man. No one was overshadowed here. It was clear Trinity was going to win because I think she just defended the belt in.
It was a non-title match.
And it was a non-title match.
She had just defended the belt, and she was defending it on the pay-per-view. So,
but
I mean, it was like here's the thing though. Like people sometimes say when you have a match where the outcome is obvious that it's almost like inconsequential or not worth watching. That's not true. Like, you can have the person come into a match who's not going to win, and they can really make a name for themselves. They can really make a statement.
Here's a
hold on. Sorry. And the number one example of that I give is Cody Rhodes was on the hottest run of his life. He was TNT champion, and he was doing this open championship every week, and all these indie guys were coming in, and he was wrestling them and beating all of them. And then one day, Eddie Kingston. I had never heard Eddie Kingston in my life. Eddie Kingston came in. He had one match with Cody Rhodes. He lost. And I was looking at him going, well, I guess I'm an Eddie Kingston fan for life now. So, like...
But here's the thing, right? So what they were trying to do is they weren't only like building stars, and like that's a really good analogy, because a lot of what was happening on this show and what they were trying to do in this whole tour, because again, they are in this kind of rebuilding stage. They're not trying to bury anybody. They're trying to like go, look, people can lose, people can win. It's all good. But what I really appreciated about this performance was they were singling right, we have X, Y, and Z to do, and we're going to build them up for it. And I have it on good authority that it looks like Jordana Grace is being tipped for the women's championship, probably at Hard to Kill. That's what they're doing. Now, she had a match on the show that wasn't on the show. Rhino had a match where he lost, and I was devastated. That obviously wasn't on Impact as well, but there were certain things they were doing and testing throughout the whole night. And once you kind of tap into what they're trying to do, it makes a lot more sense. But definitely star-making performance for both the girls, and I'm so happy Trinity's there. Because look, who's your one that spins the hair in WWE?
I know who you mean.
Yeah, not a fan of her, right? I think she's one-dimensional, and the hair thing is, again, I do think if you want to be the biggest,
it's good gimmick, but it's
no. If you want to be the biggest heel in wrestling, shave the head, right? Be amazing, right? Be
or
hilarious.
do the opposite. Attach something to the ponytail.
Yes. Yes. But
a cat of nine tails or a brayer. Just like,
that would be good.
Just every time you go to wrestling, like you go into wrestling in like New York, you go, all right, you need to take me upstate. I need to cut the length of a brayer bush.
But I mean, the thing about it is, like, she's very one-dimensional, right? And this is the problem with WWE. They have very one-dimensional characters in a lot of respects. On this show, the women were more than one-dimensional. They are actually, like, Naomi was quite one-dimensional in WWE, but as Trinity, she's completely well-rounded. And I think the same thing would happen. Same thing would happen with Bianca Belair. She just needs to have that exposure to other women wrestler and different wrestling styles. And having Emerson Jane in there, like, she was a perfect one to team up. But our main event, now, as I said, there were a couple of matches that weren't on the show, but the main event.
Well, this is where you come in, because I was only watching the telly, but you were our man on the ground.
Yes, sir. So there were, as I said earlier on, there were more matches in the Glasgow Cup. So there were two matches.
You don't have to go through them blow by blow, but was there anything that you thought that we didn't get to see, us poor peasants on television and internet, that you thought was worthy of maybe an international audience?
Not necessarily. And the reason Rich Swann was against. Rich Swann was there, and I think he was against Rhino. He was. That match, I really wanted Rhino to win because I love Rhino. I know.
I'm kind of desperate to see that. I want to know what 2023 Rhino is like in a match.
Super over. Everybody loves him.
Yeah. Oh my God. If Rhino was in the garden, I'd be cheering him.
Like, he's brilliant, But the thing about it is, it's like, he teased the gore, couldn't do the gore, and it was just like, it was sad. But
couldn't do it because he missed, or couldn't do it?
No, he missed it.
He missed it. Run fast enough.
No, he missed it. But it's still just like, Rhino's so cool, and so I have an answer for you. You were like, who's the biggest Bookley of all time?
Oh.
So it's not only the Big Boss Man, because that's obvious. Rhino is. I know he won the ECW title, and I know he's won the TNA or the NWA title in TNA, but my God, Rhino is such a Bookley, and I mean that with all the love of my heart.
Oh, Bookley isn't necessarily.
It's not a bad thing. No, we see it as a good thing, but I mean, he's just such a lad, You're like, go Rhino, win, lose or draw. You're like, come on Rhino. And apparently in Turning Point, he was successful.
I think what cemented for me, absolutely cemented his Bookley status, was when he got let go by WWE, and then he said, well, I'm keeping the same gimmick, and he just changed one letter of his name, and I was like, bang, that is a legend. That is a man who just does not care.
So one of the biggest segments he did in TNA was when he burned the ECW title. Just threw it in the bin. He goes, I'm the last champion. I'm actually the champion. I'm gonna set it on fire. Legend.
It'd be like if the Undertaker left WWE, obviously would never happen, but if he left WWE and he just decided, he just put like an what is it the Germans call it? An umlaut?
Umlaut. An
Yeah,
umlaut.
an umlaut over it. And he just called, I'm the Undertaker.
Undertaker.
I'm the Undertaker.
Oh my god.
I'm the legally distinct Undertaker. I'm like, oh my god. You badass.
He just the whole thing with a German accent.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, my Lieben.
Rest in peace, Meinhausen.
Oh my god. Okay, so the main event was again like something I never thought would happen, right? I've loved the Motor City Machine Guns since I was like 16 years old, right? They are for me like TNA. And what's funny about it is like I didn't think they would do it because, you know, Shelley's the world champion and Chris Sabin's the X Division champion. So they did kind of sacrifice matches for the belts, which some people, and look, I would be one of them being like, oh, they should have had belts defended. But you had a reunion of the Motor City Machine Guns. So people did not care. They were like so here for it. And then you had Josh Alexander, who was phenomenal, and Eric Young. Now, Eric Young is interesting because I remember Eric Young when he was afraid of his pyro, and that was his gimmick, right? Back in TNA, like way back. So to see him become like genuinely, like, it wasn't on TV, but he gave a speech afterwards. And he is the locker room leader of TNA. And that's insane. It's crazy to think about. But like super over. I mean,
I can see why he is.
Oh, you can, yeah.
Super over, but also just excellent in not so much in this match. That's not to downplay this. This match was brilliant.
No, but
he had a match on Turning Point.
This match was phenomenal. This match was specifically to give the fans the guns. That's what this match was for. And I knew that. I loved it. I was totally here for it. I popped for every spot that they had. It was unbelievable. Cradle shock, bang. Oh man.
So I need to ask you a question.
5 stars.
Okay. Firstly,
million stars.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Before I ask you a question, this match was fantastic. I have in my notes MCM v Josh Alexander and Eric Young. How could it not be fantastic?
Literally, that was it from the moment it was announced. It was
they absolutely. Now, I'll be honest with you. I didn't think they went full tilt, but I think that was deliberate because it was a weekly show in Glasgow. It wasn't like a pay-per-view or anything. So like you wouldn't be expecting anyone like so Motor City Machine Guns can do like some stunts that you'd be like, why did you do that? You legitimately could have died. So I didn't expect any of that, but an excellent match. But what really got me was they weren't on the pay-per-view. Were they? So here's
the guns are.
Were they?
Sorry, who are you talking about?
Motor City Machine Guns.
No, the guns weren't on the pay-per-view. No.
No. So that's my question: is what is the crack with the Motor City Machine Guns? And also, like, not to be a big AEW head about this, but they seem like perfectly fitted for AEW. They've done matches. No, they completely are, man.
I know, but I don't want that.
FTR.
I don't want that though.
And the Motor City Machine Guns. Those are the 3 best tag teams in the world.
I can answer. Okay,
my 2 questions to you are: why weren't they on the pay-per-view? And if they're not like TNA, why aren't they in AEW? So those are my 2 questions.
So I can answer. I'll answer the AEW question first, right? So I think at this the TNA rebranding is more than just a gimmick, as we said. I genuinely
I think so. I honest to God believe that. I think it feels more.
The answer, I think, is rooted in that. Everyone on that roster is like, we are actually going to do something here. And the guns have been there from the beginning. They have moved around a bit, but then they came back. Same with Eric Young and all that stuff. So they're like, we can
sticking with TNA.
Yeah, I think that because they want to kind of be like, right, we're the world champion and the X Division championship. We are.
Why wouldn't you have them on your pay-per-view then?
Because they did. They had Sabin on the pay-per-view, but not together. And the reason why is Shelley had a hell of a match at Bound for Glory, they have to rest the champion as well. They don't want to get him injured. Like the pay-per-view was stacked as it was, man. And again, the real main event of that match, like from a TNA standpoint, was the women's match. That's why they brought Gail Kim back. But then again, you had Will Ospreay and Eddie Edwards. That was also the draw. They didn't need to fully stack it. They're actually the answers. That's what they were doing. It makes sense. Remember, they were doing these shows. Like, I didn't even know the Guns were there until I was in the airport. On the day they announced them.
Yeah.
So I think they were trying to be like, right, let's not burn everyone else out here, but then also give things a chance to breathe, because they were block taping some of them. They were doing pay-per-views, and then also they were riding Bound for Glory. And then when you have Will Ospreay there, you're going to buy the show anyway, because Will Ospreay's there, even though it's a stupid tattoo.
Well, before we get into that, no, his tattoo is accurate. But
I know, but still.
Before we get into that, a brilliant match and an absolutely deserved main event. And also, it's so good to see tag team wrestling be a main event, not multi-man stuff, not like an actual tag, as you know, I'm big into AEW, and AEW had the best tag team division in the world for 3 years. And now it's kind of gone askew, which is so weird because they have 2 of the 3 best tag teams in existence. The 3 best tag teams in the world are Bucks, FTR, and Motor City Machine Guns. And they have Bucks and FTR. The problem is that they don't have any great opponents, to sustain, campaigns or feuds or whatever. But one of the things that I always thought about AEW was that they're going to make tag team wrestling like a thing. It's going to be a serious concern, as serious as the world title. So I really appreciated that the main event of this was a tag team match. But it was Motor City Machine Guns. How could it not be the main event?
And that's it, So they were building up for another show. There's the women's championship again wasn't defended either. But again, this is an episode of Impact. They had a pay-per-view after, and then Jonathan Grisham challenged Alex Shelley for the Impact World Championship. So that is coming. And again, they're kind of not trying to burn each other out. But yeah, I agree. I think it was a match I didn't expect to happen. The crowd loved it. And then Eric Young did a little speech afterwards. Crowd went absolutely mental. It was great. The show was over. There was no matches on after it because they don't really do that. They had enough wrestling at that point, and the crowd was well and truly finished. They did do something cool where you could meet everybody afterwards if you wanted to, the general fans. You could pay a little bit and go and meet them upstairs, which was pretty cool. I've never seen that before. And apparently they sell bits of the ring as well, and they sign it. I'm like, this is genius. Giving people literally the ring is actually very clever.
But I think the main thing that happened after this match, like you said, there was no other matches. And one of the main advantages of that was that the next match was Impact Turning Point.
Yes.
Thank you for listening to a Nerd to Know Media production.